And we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek, here where we talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we are joined by some of the brightest minds in mobile development. You like how I did that? Worked that out. I worked that out right before the show. And today's guest is going to be Gremlin Interactive, or AKA Danny Glover. Hey, Danny.
Hey, Charles. How are you?
Joining us all the way from, where are you, Danny?
Ireland.
Ireland. Oh, awesome. Danny's going to be talking to us about monetization plugins. He's got a set of plugins for Keep and PayPal that you can use to reward your customers and or take money from them. Is that an appropriate term? Can you say that? Take money from them? It sounds like a heist.
You can say that.
How about
That's what we're doing. Let's get real.
you can accept money from them. Yeah, you can't take it from them. They got to give it to you.
Well, if they give it to you, I can certainly take it.
Actually, I want that plugin. I want the take money from the customer plugin. You may download my game for free, but I am going to take your money.
Big gun.
Good grief. Oh yeah, we accept money. We accept money.
Maybe that's it. I can make a game with a button that says "Take my money."
Yeah, we should.
PayPal plugin. I'm there. Okay. Seriousness. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
No, that's fun. That's fun. Yeah, that's good. So, since you've already taken the floor there, Ed, how is the Fire TV library coming?
Yeah,
Love those eyebrows, by the way.
That's what I said before the show. It's done. It's out. It's been released. Let's see.
It's in the wild.
Yeah. So I mean, I released the library. I modified it a little bit. Joshua, one of the staff members, he gave me some feedback in the forums, and I made some changes. And then, just to make things a little easier for folks, I released a couple of examples, including one that uses, it's an empty composer framework that uses the Fire TV and the remapped keyboard inputs to navigate the menus.
Okay, so when you say remap keyboard inputs or whatever, let's say that's like you're remapping touch events to
Right.
keyboard events, is that right?
I'll give you the synopsis. So, if you're testing your game on the Fire TV device and you've got the library already hooked up, then you would just use your little handheld remote control. But if you want to edit the game and test it on the simulator, I can't speak. In the simulator, you don't want to have to continually generate it and put it on the device. So I have remapped keys from the keyboard for OS X and for Windows, which are the slightly different mappings, or the some of the key names come out differently, such that you can use the arrow keys and some keys on your keyboard to fake Fire TV inputs. So you program it, test it in the simulator, get it all working the way you want using the keyboard, and then you simply export it to your device, test it one more time with the Fire TV input, the remote control, and you should be golden.
Okay, cool. So this is all with the remote. This isn't with the optional controller?
Right. I do not yet have access to a game controller. So I don't have any of the access inputs or the D-pad or whatever comes with that.
All right. So as in access, you don't have access, like you don't have one?
As in, I don't have a Fire TV device, nor do I have a Fire TV... all of this was sort of done by sending copies of guesswork to somebody and saying, please test this, and yes, this worked, no, this didn't work, and yeah, it was pretty quick, but still.
Very cool. Well, very cool. Well, hopefully...
Joshua pointed one thing out in the forums. It's absolutely true. None of this was needed. The library, it wasn't necessary for me to write a library. Corona already supports it out of the box. It's just my library makes it a little bit easier for people to associate specific events with actions in their game. So they don't have to think about what the names of the keys will be.
Oh, very cool. All right. Well, I got you. Okay. Well, cool. We'll put a link to in the show notes so people can go check it out if they want to use that option. Right. So, Chris, how are you doing? Chris, you're on mute.
Yes, there we are.
Hey.
Doing good. Just cracking away at Chromium. Going to have a nice update this week. Some new stuff, analytics, and kind of an overhaul of the UI. So, just been busy on that.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So, if anybody isn't familiar, Chris is the developer of Chromium. Chromium, what's the cloud? Is that what we're going to call it? Chromium Cloud?
Yeah, cloud server, cloud platform, whatnot.
Yeah, which is now available on Amazon Web Services. So he's got a deployment for that there that's pretty easy to go through. I went through the documentation and it's super simple to set up. So go check him out at coronium.io. That's for sure.
Yeah, simplified it a lot more. I'm kind of getting rid of all the user friction, all the little configure files and whatnot. I'm just making it all as smooth as possible now.
Just one big take your money button.
Yeah, I'm going to put that right on the front.
Does anybody else?
It's my idea.
Yeah, that's patented.
With a portion going to Ed, of course.
Don't worry. It's going to be an app. We've had Flappy Birds. We've had Don't Touch the White Tile. There's going to be just an app that's got one button that says Take My Money.
I think we already did that. That was the $1,000 app, right?
Right. Just one time. You got to sell it just like once, and you're good.
And we've had a couple of these. We've had the one we didn't do that somebody else did do, the breakup.
Dear John?
No, the breakup. Yeah, the Dear John one.
The Dear John one. Yeah.
Which somebody went out and did.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, had the penguin one. So mad
Yeah,
about
which multiple people have now done.
Yes.
But we won't get started on that.
All right. Well, also we need to do a congratulations to Theo Russian Jr., who is on the panel here with us. Theo participated in a hackathon over the weekend and took first place. He and his team.
All right.
They participated in the AT&T what was it? The AT&T Public Safety Hackathon in DC. So he literally converted code into dollars.
Yes, wasn't a bad weekend. Although 36 hours of no sleep. That's
Oh,
brutal.
you did it with the no sleep?
Oh, you do it with the no sleep. Yeah, the no sleep option. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that reaction, Jen.
No, because at HackFit that's against the rules. At HackFit you must go to sleep. Justin says at bedtime is 11:30. Everybody go sleep.
Oh, yeah. That's my kind of hackathon.
Yeah, because we're all like, it's supposed to be healthy.
Yeah. Pillows, blankets, and juice boxes. That's my kind of hackathon.
Healthy juice boxes.
All right. Well, let's get on into this, Danny. I know that you've got a lot of stuff to show us. I know I want to have enough time to do that. So, what do you want to start with? But first, before we start, I guess I think you had a couple of announcements you wanted to make. So, let's talk about that.
Yes, so the first one is we currently have a system where you're allowed to try the plugin before you buy, if you like, where it's free to use the plugin in a test environment like Sandbox or Go Network. This is changing in a week's time, this day next week. We're making it so that the plugin is only able to be used if you purchase a valid license. And the reason we're doing this in a nutshell is more sales equals more time, and more time equals more plugins. So that's the general idea behind it.
You know, it's amazing. People don't really realize the value of cash flow in a startup situation. You know, when you're developing something, you put a lot of time and effort and energy into it, and then you need to get it out there. And you know, people are going to kind of evaluate it and kind of sit on the fence, and then meanwhile you're trying to gather information and get feedback and understand how everything, you know, all from a business standpoint, how everything works, and then maybe eventually, you know, people decide to buy and that sort of thing. It's really tough. So it's kind of good to be out there and know if you need to use the plugin, want to use the plugin, and make the decision and pull the trigger.
That's right. I pulled the trigger. I purchased. So everybody who watches, purchase.
There you go.
I'm not joking.
That's right. It's a buy it now option. That's what we're calling it. It's the buy it now option.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. The make it happen option. I like that. Make it happen.
Make it rain.
Make it rain. Okay, good. That's good too.
You've got
She's got plenty of options. All right, so let's. What else is there? Was there another announcement?
Yeah, so the other two little things are, I've forgotten one of them now. One is that the common misconception is that I made both of these plugins, whereas I did the PayPal plugin through Gremlin Interactive. The Keep plugin was made by Jen and myself in collaboration. So if anyone's looking for support, then both of us are here to help you with that one.
Oh, very cool. So support is available. And do you have that listed anywhere on the website?
No, that's been something I've been meaning to do but kept on forgetting. So
All right.
I'll be adding that on there.
All right, you will do that. So go check the website out, Gremlin Interactive, and there will be details there. We'll link to it as well in the show notes. And Jen, I didn't know you were party to this. This
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah.
Very sweet.
Yeah, because I wanted to learn how to build plugins, and Danny wanted to launch a store, and I like Keep, so it was kind of a match made in heaven.
Got it. Got it. And you just needed one more project to work on.
Exactly.
Kind of like Ed. Just one more project. Come on, just give me one more. Throw the ball. Throw the ball. Okay. So, Danny, was there something about Google Analytics? I think you said something about that earlier.
Yes, sorry, that was it. We are also developing a plugin for Google Analytics. Initially, it was going to be iOS, followed by Android shortly after. So if anyone wants to get in on testing that, there's no limit to how many people, more the better. So just either visit the Corona forums, there's a thread there that explains what we're looking for, or visit Gremlin Interactive blog, and it also shows the link there to the thread that announces it also.
Okay, cool, awesome. We'll link to all that in the show notes for sure. So thanks for that. So let's talk about the Keep plugin and see how that works.
And before we start, maybe we should mention that I'm also working on what I'm calling the Parse Lite plugin. So this will just allow you to do an installation to get your Android app to be able to accept push, which we really need a plugin for that. Everything else is pretty much handled by Chris's mod Parse, although Parse had another release of some very interesting functionality just a couple days ago. So Chris, maybe you and I want to talk offline of supporting all that hot stuff.
Yeah, and
that'd be cool.
Chris, you got the mod push bot. I mean, Jen, couldn't that be used in conjunction with the Parse Lite?
Well, that's what everybody's doing, but it would be nice to have an end-to-end Parse project. I'm going to get the door. 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, that mod push bot is pretty sweet in and of itself. I've played with that, and it's been easy to implement and a lot of fun to play with. So, Danny, what do we need to do to get started with Keep?
Okay, so Jen is actually going to demonstrate the Keep plugin, and I'm going to demonstrate the PayPal plugin. So if you want to start with Keep, Jen will walk you through the code.
Okay. So I'm going to do two parts. I'm going to talk about the Corona code that you're going to need to plug into the Keep plugin, and I'm also going to show you the Keep backend where you can handle how the moments are displayed to the user. So the first thing I'll just pull up is very, very simple. Let me just remember how to do screen share. There it is.
Screen share is always the hardest part.
Oh yeah, it's all hidden.
Dear Google, make a big button that says screen share.
Is that? Oh golly.
Oh, yep, there it is.
Okay.
I can see it.
You see it?
I see it.
All right, because it's giving me funny pop-ups. So
you might want to bump up the font size of the code though, just if you can. Control plus, Command plus, something like that. There we go.
Thank you. Okay, so all we have here is you're requiring your Keep plugin. If you want to, you don't have to. You want to have maybe a button, a Corona button that is going to pop up this this interstitial that's going to come up if you're invoking this plugin. There's a lot of stuff here just for setting background color, and then you initialize the plugin right here. So here is your Keep init, and you're going to put in the license key that you're going to get after you buy the plugin from Danny's system. You're going to plug in, I've just changed the values here, your app key and your app secret that you're going to generate on the Keep side. And then you can add a couple of little helper bits here. The first one is an email, because what Keep does is it basically pushes coupons at the user. So you could gather the user of your game or your utility app's email in another point, and then just push it, push it through to Keep, so that it'll just make the screens a little easier to use. If you want to target the kind of rewards that are going to go to your user, you could maybe put them in a gender bucket. Birthday is always useful to have, and then you could set an alias for the user so that they would be placed in like a group. Like these are my yoga users, and these are my stretching app users. This kind of thing. And then what you're going to have is a way to trigger for the moments to be displayed to the user. So here I have just a plain old button. And on release, I'm going to invoke the other half of the Keep plugin, which is Keep Save Moment. And you're just going to invoke the moment name, and here I'm calling it a super prize. You can, in Keep, you can also set it to use virtual currency, so you can give it a value. And that's pretty much it. I was going to say eat, because they were talking about Keep. That's it. Very, very simple. All you're doing is allowing at a certain point in your app for an interstitial to pop up. And the user will be notified that they just won a prize. And then Keep is going to kind of shuffle through their inventory and display a prize. And if you have a very specific use case or a very specific app or certain prizes that you don't want to go to your users, you can contact Keep, and they're pretty receptive. And they'll help you kind of sort through the inventory and get it right for your app. I ran into Keep the first time when I was using Yoga Studio, which is just a basic yoga app, and I think when you complete 10 yoga workouts, you're presented with this prize. And it was really pretty nice feature. So I thought it would be good to use.
Do you know if you can? I mean, do they get the same prize over and over again, or is that how does that work?
No, it's like shuffled. I've been bad, and I haven't done a lot of yoga recently, so I haven't gotten a lot of prizes from Yoga Studio. But I think the first one I won was like I think it was a little coupon for a discount at Starbucks or something like that. So I think it's mostly that sort of thing, like little discount coupons. But the nice thing about Keep is it's they call it real rewards, so it's not just like virtual currency if you don't want it to be. It can be actual stuff. So that's kind of nice. And they work with pretty big brands. Okay, so if I do that, let's see. Okay, screen share. Stop screen share. Okay, I'm going to just target the browser here.
So now you're going to screen share and show us the app in action. Is that what we're?
So what I'm showing you here is the backend in Keep. So you need to create an account in Keep and set up your moments that you want to be targeted. So remember that I had the moment called a super prize. I have it here, and I've set it up in the backend. These are some of our little testing moments, test high scores and that sort of thing. And there's a developer console in Keep, and you can listen for incoming device calls. So it's kind of convenient that way. But it's very, very, it's very basic. You just have, your authentication keys and your secrets, and you can enable or disable virtual currency, and then you have your moments here.
And moments again are just.
Moments are the interstitial that's going to pop up. So they call it like a rewardable moment. If you complete 12 stretches, then I'm going to tell Keep, okay, pop me a moment. And then it'll show that you won a super prize. And Danny's going to show it. It's hard to kind of visualize until you have a demo. So I'm going to pass the torch over to Danny, and he is going to show you.
I really like this idea of being able to reward users, because one of the things that we're continually asked to do as consumers is to give something, to give our email address or to give our attention, and it's nice to be able to reward somebody as opposed to ask them to to do something for you.
Yes, definitely. So Danny, do you want to? Okay, so Danny's got the screen share over there.
Okay, so it's as simple as clicking this button. You want to ignore that topic for now. That's just a custom banner made in Corona. And there we go.
And you remember that test user email? That was what I had set up in the back, so that's carried through.
Okay, so it's basically pre-pop in the box so that the user doesn't have to type it in.
And then they click redeem, and they can send to their email.
Now, what was the first bit that showed up? You said there was the Corona bit there.
Yes, so that is well. What happened was Keep initially had what was called a custom banner that you could show before the interstitial. You could assign it a logo, background color, and text. But about, I think it was a week before we launched, they decided to rip that out without like a silent change without telling anyone. So we kept it in, but they've confirmed since that they're not going to add that back in. So we're going to be taking this out to match what we're going to offer on the Android side. But basically all it is like you could easily recreate Synchrony yourself anyway, so it's not like you're going to be losing much functionality. It's just a rectangle text and a logo, so and then you could have a pen on that, and then you could show the interstitial if you wanted to do it that way.
Yeah, that does seem a little unnecessary. I mean, you're going to show them a full page interstitial anyway, so they're going to get it.
It's box after box. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they don't, if you haven't captured their email address already, they just have to type that in, hit redeem, and then they're ready to go. They get their
and I pasted in the chat a list of the brands that are supported. So there's like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, this kind of stuff.
And you said, Jen, that if you wanted to, you could contact like a rep or something, and they could help refine that list of rewards that show up.
Yeah, they made sure to say that, if you have a fitness app, in fact, it looks like they've just launched a fitness channel. I just noticed that 2 seconds ago. I'm going to have to ask them about that. They don't want a fitness app to be rewarding Burger King. So they want to make sure that the rewards given are right for you. So they'll kind of filter for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is one of the challenges of presenting ads to users, especially when you have something that targets, like if you have a website that's general audience, sure, run whatever you want on it. But if you're a vegan website, you don't want the Burger King and the Tyson chicken and all the other stuff showing up on your site. So it's important to be able to do that. It would be good if they had a panel, and maybe they'll eventually get to that where they can you could customize that on your own without having to go through a rep. But that's good.
Yeah.
All right, Danny. What else? What else is there? Is that it? I mean, is it that simple? Just kind of a few lines of code, and then we're ready to go, ready to rock and roll.
For Keep, yeah.
Okay, Danny's muted. He's probably doing something over there. Okay.
Sorry, guys. That's all. Let's do it. Simple
okay. All right. Well, that seems pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. So create your account, get the plugin, use the code. Did you say there was sample code included with it?
Yes, there is sample code on the GitHub repo that's linked to in the documentation, and it's also linked to on the store page for the Keep plugin as well.
Okay, couldn't be easier. So there you go. Yep.
Yeah, you said get the plugin. Get the multi-pack plugin.
Which is?
They have the single license, the 5 and the 10. Is that still true?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so get the 10. I'm just trying to help you guys out. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to see the stuff keep coming, so you gotta get a few bucks in there and grease the skid, so to speak.
That's right. Now, and let's talk about that for just a second. What would be the what is the multi-pack? What was an instance where you would need the multi-pack, the 10 licenses?
Okay, so the way it works is you can either buy a 2-app license, 5-app license, or 10-app license. So there is no time restrictions on the license. They don't expire. So, for instance, if you were a hobbyist and you plan on integrating Kip into a game that you have or you're making, probably the 2-app license will suit you. So basically that means you can use it in 2 apps that you submit to the App Store, and then after that, if you wanted to make another game, you'd have to buy an extra license to cover the apps that you want to make in the future. So I suppose the 10-app license, and there is multi-volume licenses available via email if you need more than 10. So I suppose 10 would be suitable for maybe like a studio making several apps.
Okay, and is there a price break on buying 10 or?
Yes, it's cheaper every 2 you go. So,
Hold on.
5 apps is a double than the 2 apps, for instance. There's a slight price reduction on each of the teams.
Okay, excellent. Okay, good. Good to know. Thanks for bringing that up, Ed. All right, so I see you have PayPal up on the screen, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, sorry, I need to switch screens. Let's see.
You can buy a bus or you can buy a T-shirt.
I like the bus option.
Okay, do you see that okay?
Yeah, it's coming through.
Okay, so this is the sample code that's available on GitHub for the PayPal plugin. So I'll walk through this. So the first line obviously is requiring the PayPal plugin. We also use the widget and JSON libraries in this plugin. The JSON library is required to be used with the PayPal plugin to be able to decode PayPal's response data. So we pretty much start here at this block. So the PayPal.init function is the first function you need to call. It takes 2 parameters, and the first one is license key, which again, exactly the same as the key plugin. It's the license key you get from the purchase of the plugin via the Gremlin Interactive Store. That comes to you via email. Test mode is true or false. If it's false, it uses either sandbox or no network modes, which is defined in another function below. If it's true, then you can use PayPal's live servers. So that you would change it to true if you were planning on submitting your app to the App Store. And then the next line, the next set of functions is PayPal.config, short for configure, which is this block here. This is where you input your PayPal credentials and also the configuration you wish to set PayPal up with. So the first 2 lines are your production client ID and your sandbox client ID. Now these seem to be worded some of these properties seem to be worded very strangely on the PayPal website. Like your sandbox PIN is actually listed as a password on the PayPal site. And I think the password is the PIN, so there's kind of a confusion going on at their site. So if you go to, I'll paste a link in the chat. We created a guide to kind of simplify this process because it's kind of very confusing. And it's a full screenshot guide which shows you how to obtain your PayPal developer credentials. I'll just paste that into the chat window. So I won't reinvent the wheel here. If anyone needs to find out, just visit that link, and it'll show you all you need to know to obtain those two values. So the next, all the lines after that are all to do with configuring PayPal. So this line here, accept credit cards, is either true or false. Obviously false if you do not wish to allow users to pay via credit card, you just use a PayPal account. True if you want them to use it. Now, the interesting thing about accepting credit cards is the PayPal SDK also uses card.io services. So if you have accept credit card set to true, you can allow users to scan their credit card via the device's camera. So they just hold up the phone to the credit card, and there's a little green box that shows on screen. I might be able to demo that soon. And basically what that does is it captures the credit card in the device's camera, and it reads the long credit card number at the front, and also the expiry date and the, what's the other one? I think it's just the expiry date. And then all users have to do is enter their CCV code, and that's it. They can make a payment. So okay, so next line is language. If this is omitted, PayPal will configure this automatically for you. So for instance, if you were an English developer and you were to, if a user from, say, Singapore was to open this, it would display in their native language. But if you want to, you can set it at a specific, like if you only want to show it in English, you can set it to EN, and it will show in English no matter what the word are. The next line, the next set of things is merchant. Now this is all to do with your company. So the name is your company name. So for instance, it could be Gremlin Interactive. Then you can also provide a privacy policy URL and an agreement URL, user agreement URL, sorry. So this is optional. Again, if you don't provide these values, the agreements in the PayPal windows will just link you to PayPal's privacy policies and user agreements. But if you have your own, it's better to specify them here, so users will see these when they click when PayPal shows. Sorry, was there a question there?
No, that was me. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so that's all to do with your company. Next is remember user. If this is true, the next time the user goes to pay for something in your app, it'll remember their email address and password. So they just have to click login. So that's a convenience function. And now this line next, environment, is what PayPal environment you wish to use PayPal in. So the valid value is a no network, which is it doesn't contact PayPal's sandbox server at all, and so you get an instant set response, which is quick. It's good to use for getting up and running initially. Then when you pass that stage, you want to use sandbox mode, which communicates with PayPal's sandbox service, so you get an actual real response back. And then when you're ready to submit your app to the App Store, you would change this to production mode. The lines below this, and they're commented out because they're optional again. Now these are convenience functions again that internally would set your test account's email, password, phone number, and that kind of thing. So when you're testing, it auto fills the forms with your sandbox password, PIN, your sandbox account email, and phone number, and country code. So when you're presented with the PayPal windows, the values will automatically be filled in, so you can just click submit and you can test straight away. So it saves a lot of time. It takes time to enter them, but enter those details manually. So that's pretty much it for configuring. Then the next function, the only other function available, is PayPal.show. Now, the first value in this, it works in two ways. Payment is a payment window for making a single payment, and then the other one is future payment, which means that it shows a window that allows the user to consent to make you can make future payments on their behalf. So for instance, in the example again, I'll just drag that over. The first one is a t-shirt, which is obviously a physical item that you can buy right now. The bus is, so they're agreeing that the view agreement in this case would call the future payment option of PayPal.show. So basically that means you agree that every time you get on this bus, they can charge you $5 for the trip. Let's move that way again. Okay, so I'll start with the single payment option. Now this takes a table to begin with of payment, which is a table containing the values you wish to use for the cost of the item. So the first one is amount, which is the amount of the item minus tax. It takes up to 2 decimal places after the first period. The next is tax, self-explanatory. Shipping, if there is any. If not, you can omit this item. And intent. Now this is sale means that it'll capture the funds and send them to your PayPal account. And authorize means it'll just capture the payment. You need to authorize that on your own server once you get the response back from PayPal. BN code is a optional tracking code that is used optionally for some businesses. Currency code, obviously USD in this case. Short description is the short description of the app, so I'll just make this visual for a second. As you can see in this window, it says green t-shirt, which matches our short description here. Then you can also, if initially you set credit cards to true or false in the PayPal config function, you can also update it here to true or false if you wish to enable it or disable it. Now the listener function returns a JSON table exactly as it's returned from PayPal. So I will just demonstrate all the initial value.
so what are we doing here? What's this part?
So we're just demonstrating buying an item and showing the response that you would get back from PayPal.
Okay.
So I'm just going to make this a bit bigger so you can see. I'll increase the size.
You're not going to scan your credit card for us here on the live show?
Okay, so I'll just put this in Sublime so you can see it.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of T90 right at the moment.
Can you see that better? Should I increase it a bit more?
Yeah, can you, a little bit more. So I see that it comes back with the platform as being iOS, the product name being PayPal iOS SDK, stuff like that.
So the main thing you're looking for here is that the currency code, the amount, all will come back as the same as you sent them to avoid fraud. The other things is obviously it returns the PayPal SDK version in use, and platform, the environment you're using, and you also, the main point of interest here is the ID, which is PayPal payment response. Now you can also use this plugin with PayPal's REST APIs via Corona's network request functions. So this value will be useful if you were to say, try and chain this to make a mass payment. To say, for instance, say this T-shirt was a check for a restaurant and you wanted to split the payment 3 ways. You could use PayPal's mass payment API via the network request functions in Corona, and this pay key would be invaluable to pass along. And so the main things are the pay key, which is the ID, and also you want to be watching out for the state and the intent. So if the state comes back as approved, the intent matches sale, and the amount was the same amount you send over to PayPal, then you can be reasonably sure that the payment was successful and also valid. They also recommend that you can send this pay key off to PayPal via their network requests. Unfortunately, it's not a built-in function where you can validate the payment via the REST API on your own server if you wish. So that again, it's optional, but if you want that extra level of security, they offer ways to authenticate this via your own server.
And so, what are we doing there basically, though? That we're just verifying that it went through, or we're verifying that it actually came from PayPal?
We're verifying that it went through.
Okay.
So
what happens?
I'll show you the flow here because I'm kind of going about this backwards.
That's okay.
So, for instance, this is a single payment window. As I said before, where are we? Sorry. Okay, so the short description matches what we put here in the PayPal show function. Now, yeah, I don't think I'll just tap this. I don't. Yeah, see, in the simulator, it just makes register card number manually, along with your CVV and stuff. But we'll log in with PayPal for the sake of this. Now, as you can see, I put those details. Okay, this code isn't actually the one I'm using. So my config function looks more like this. So you can see, let's go down. So you can see that I've used default set to true, and I have my email address and phone number and stuff filled in. So it automatically gets filled in here, and also there. So I can just click login. And it logs in, shows my email address that I logged in with, that it's $50 US. Click send payment, it processes that payment, and it returns a response similar to what I showed here, which gives you the state, whether it was approved or not, and the intent, which is sale, which should match the same intent we sent out in the configuration function, I think. Yeah. Intent equals sale. The amount, match the amount we set up.
So what happens if the transaction fails? I know we're talking about it being successful, but what happens when it fails?
When it fails, it'll give you a response of payment. Now this is all documented again on my website. It gives you a response type of failed, and the reason why. So it could say, for instance, failed unapproved, or it could say failed insufficient funds. So you can use the data passed along to show a message to your user if it failed, because the PayPal window itself isn't very helpful. It just says transaction failed, and that's pretty much it. So, but it does give you back the reasons why it failed, so you could also show that to your user at the end of the transaction if it failed.
So the plugin itself will send the transaction off. PayPal will provide a status message, and then based on the feedback that you get, are you then outside of the plugin then creating a response to the user, or is that part of the plugin itself?
Yeah, so that would be outside. So you would do that in the listener function for the PayPal.show function. You can see here it's not very descriptive. It's just looping through the confirmation data. Because the reason being, PayPal could change this at any time. So I didn't want to have specific key pairs and then PayPal change it one day and then my plugin just breaks. So I keep this fluid so that if they ever change the data, you automatically have the latest data in your PayPal plugin. But again, this data is the return data from PayPal is documented on their website too. So if you want to see the specific data returned back, you can either visit their website or run the function in various scenarios, and you'll see all the return data.
Okay, but in the event listener, then we get the return status, and then from there we're able to create our own custom messaging to the user, so we can make it whatever we want, really. Then at that point.
Yeah, you could add a screen saying, like, "Thank you for your purchase. We appreciate your business." Whatever, really. As long as you get back the state that matches what you're expecting.
So now you're doing all this in the sandbox, is that right? I mean, you get a development environment and a production environment.
Yeah, so this is all being done in the sandbox right now.
On PayPal, okay. And so the other question I had here was how does that kind of thing, taking transactions or taking money or accepting money, I guess is a better term, accepting money in these apps, is there any situation where Apple wouldn't like that, basically, where you're competing directly with Apple?
Yeah, so the main things to avoid is you couldn't use this for unlocking in-app content or using it for unlocking virtual goods. It has to be physical goods or, I suppose, physical services like taxi rides, bus rides, or even it could be a service for your website. It's just anything basically that just you avoid anything that is to do with unlocking app content, because Apple will reject it. But they're fine with anything, like I said previously, physical goods or services are fine.
Okay, that makes complete sense. If it's pretty much a common sense kind of thing. I mean, if you're going head to head with Apple on accepting funds, then you're probably going to be in the losing position. So you said you can do single payments and you can do future payments. Does future payments include subscriptions, and can you do subscriptions with this?
Yes. Now, I'm not going to say 100% sure, because as far as I'm aware, you can offer subscriptions with this service with Apple, but I'd recommend double checking to make yourself safe. But you can. It's basically for anything. Now, this function is very, very simple. It just takes one parameter, which is the listener function. You can't customize it in any way. So this is our agreement visually. We log in again, as usual. And it shows you this, so your company name, so that'll be the name we fill in. So for instance, Gremlin Interactive asks you that we are able to authorize charges for Gremlin Interactive purchases, PayPal, blah, blah, blah. And that you agree to our privacy policy and user agreement. Now, those links there are the links I spoke of earlier. So if you inputted those links into your configuration function, if the user tapped those, it would open Safari and show them in the browser. So then that's all there is to it. So they agree to. Before you use this function, you'd want to have a descriptive screen informing the user what they're actually agreeing to, because this window doesn't really, it's all just for that you agree to what they're asking you to do, but you've heard what they want you to do beforehand.
And do you have to set any of this up on the PayPal side ahead of time? So like you have a product that someone is actually purchasing, or is this sort of a on the fly from the app sort of thing?
Now this is on the fly from the app, but you do need to set up an app on the PayPal website to get it running, which I'll show after this. So the only thing left is to agree, and again, you get back return data, which is slightly different to the one before. I'll just get that data for you.
And also, you had mentioned that there was a language flag that you could set. So, are we saying that maybe in that last example there, if I had put a different language other than English, it would be presented to me all in a different language? Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. So whatever language you configure will be shown in all of these PayPal windows.
Okay. Okay.
So would a good use case for this be something like in the parent section of my app, I could sell the hard copy of a storybook or a T-shirt?
Yeah, exactly. That'd be something that would be allowed, and Apple won't have any problems with that at all.
Cool.
Yeah, that is an interesting point you make there, Jen. There's a lot of different, some obvious use cases like things like physical products and things like that. But I mean, there's also, we have crowdfunding going on and all these different kind of concepts and stuff. It's kind of interesting that once you have the payment processing mechanism down, then you can integrate it into some sort of flow that you can be creative, like things like doing what are those? What's the car thing? Like we get the car in the cities.
Oh.
Not zip car, but those types of things. Where you get to create a whole other industry of thing
sharing.
out of this ability to be able to create a process and be able to take process money for it. That's the right words.
Now, I will say one thing. There is another use case, like you said, crowdfunding. The last time I checked, Apple don't allow you to have a PayPal donate button in your app. To do that, they want you to have a link in your app that goes to your website, which has the PayPal donate button on there, but they don't want it in the app itself. So that's something to be aware of if you're planning to use this for that. Apple don't allow that, so it's something to be aware of.
Interesting. That's I wonder if that's because if they're just separating, because it's not everybody understands the separation between a credit card process on PayPal versus a credit card process through Apple, right? To them, they're in an app, they're on the device, they're pushing a button, money's taken. At least if you have to go to a third-party website in order to complete a transaction, I am clearly over there on that website.
Yes, it's out of the app flow, which is, I think, what they want to avoid.
Yeah, almost like a distancing, sort of thing. It's not that you're encroaching on their revenue, or not that just maybe user misunderstanding. Okay, what did you say there was a next piece that we wanted to take a look at?
Yeah, so the last piece is the return data from the future payment window is a lot simpler. You get the same stuff back again, like the PayPal SDK version, etc. Now the response type in this is an authorization code. Now this gives you a long authorization code that you would use to send to your server. Now this is where the PayPal hands off the functionality to you to send this code to your server and do whatever you need to do server side to authenticate this user in your system and say that they've allowed us to consent to payments, so we can take money from this user. And so there is documentation on the PayPal side for handling future transactions, to call it. Generally, the flow is that you get your response code back from PayPal, you send that to your server, and you exchange that for an OAuth2 code, and then you would save that user in your database to make sure that you don't try and charge the user twice. So once they've been authenticated, they're authenticated, and that's it. Now, it's not as simple as that, unfortunately, but there is good documentation on PayPal's site that explain the process and how to set it up.
Okay, excellent.
So that is pretty much it. Now, apart from, I'll just show quickly how you would set up your app on the PayPal side.
And that's what the link that you shared earlier, that you went to the PayPal developer credentials documentation on your website.
Yeah, that just show. It doesn't show creating the app because it's very simple.
Okay.
But I'll just show the basics and process of setting up an app.
Okay, so this isn't necessarily the products or services that you're going to offer within the app, but it's going to be the actual app itself. You're registering the app with PayPal so that it can use, so you get your API key and all that kind of stuff. Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly. So this, you would create an app. It's basically the same as the way you do it with Apple. You create an individual app per app you make. I'll just go into this now. Okay, so you click the Applications tab at the top, and then you see this Create App at the top right. All you have to do is create the app name, so say Corona App. And that's it. You've created an app. So then it gives you all the details you need, live, credentials.
That's not anything like the Apple version. You said it was like the Apple version. It's not anything like the Apple version. You still have 6 more pages to go through, some checkboxes you missed.
Well, it's like with Keep. They have, each app is set up, and you get your own keys for each app.
Yeah, that's very cool. I wish the Apple version was that simple.
Now the only challenge now is you find the details, you see. So then you had to go to Sandbox accounts and click the account, click profile. Now this is where it gets kind of annoying, and you see here there's loads of different tabs. This is the majority of, let's see, password. There's a pin somewhere. See, I can't even remember where to find it.
Okay, so we've got the note to the PayPal guys is to put the pin button, like give me my pin, big pin button. Create the app was a big button. Give me my pin button should be a big button. Because I mean, honestly, there's some people will kind of get onto you, right, for not reading the documentation, right? Like, let's cover the documentation. You should just read the documentation. But there are some times when you're like, look, I created it. I've done this part. The next obvious step is blah. Give it to me. Right? And then I'll go read the documentation for all the rest of it. Am I here? Am I alone here? Am I alone? Crickets? Hello? Hello? Is this thing on?
I'm just going to show how the guide, because I can't remember how to get them. So basically, like, you created the app. You click the app name you created. The first set of credentials are on the first page that I brought you to. Sandbox test account, email address, client ID. Now there's one thing to be aware of that actually I don't think I put in this guide. If you use the test account that's listed by default, like PayPal facilitator at yourcompany.com, this bug may have been fixed, but there's a bug where the transactions will fail because it thinks that it's sending money from the same account to the same account. So it's advised to go to the Sandbox Accounts tab and create an account that's totally separate to your company's account, like my email address at gmail.com. And then the Sandbox client ID is there, along with your secret. And then you click the Live Credentials tab and you get your production ID. This is where the fun starts. You click your Sandbox test account, click Profile, and then you get to your API credentials. And then this here where it says password at the top, that's actually your Sandbox user PIN. And in the official the official PayPal SDK, they also list it as PIN, even though it's worded as password on the site. So that's kind of confusing. But this guide explains what they actually are. So hopefully this is simple enough to follow and people understand how to get the credentials. And there's one more thing I want to mention. to receive funds for your app from the app. The app funds go to whatever PayPal account you set up here. So you set up your PayPal account, you log in to PayPal, you create an app, and then you get your credentials. So the money will go to whatever PayPal account you're using for. So Samuel client ID and production client ID, more importantly. So say you create a PayPal account with joeblogs@gmail.com, and you go through all this and you create your app and stuff. The money will go to joeblogs@thingy.com, unless so you have to use the production client ID from the email address you set up to get the money to go to that account, if that makes sense.
Okay, so be sure you set it up to the correct account that you want the money to go into, basically.
Exactly. The older SDK allowed you to specify, I think, which email address you wanted to send it to, but this one's very specific. It only goes to the email account like you set up initially.
Okay.
So if you're developing an app for a client, for instance, you'd want to make sure that you got their credentials rather than using your own when you were ready to give the app over.
Okay. And Ed will be sure to give us his email address later on so that all the money can go to his account. Exactly. I'm catching on, right? Well, Danny, that's fantastic. It sounds like it's easy to use, and you've already documented everything so that if anybody has any questions and stuff, they can get started without too much of a headache.
Well, I know the documentation makes it simpler than I made it there, so look at the documentation after watching this.
Well,
Okay.
you chose 2 awesome initial plugins, so I'm really excited about Keep, and I'm racking my brain for ways to make use. I think I told you this in an email, but make use of PayPal. So best of luck to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have. You know, you get something and you're like, okay, now what do I do with it? You know, like now you're just like, I gotta use this. It's a solution in search of a problem. You know.
Good solution.
Sure. I suppose one of the main use cases will be for people making e-commerce apps. So, for instance, you have a store online and you want to make an app that you sell your things through with a better interface. That's one of the key use cases that I've seen.
Yeah, that sounds like, Chris. It sounds like a product. Maybe, you know, an e-commerce store thing with some buttons and some money taking.
We're so mercenary.
We joke about it, but it's showing our true nature here.
Yeah, well, you know, it's who's true nature? I don't know what you're talking about. Get in with the eyebrows. What is that? All right, for anybody who is interested in that, be sure to go to Gremlin Interactive. There, you've got lots of options there to choose from. Definitely can buy one or both plugins. You can buy packs if you want to save a few bucks. Definitely recommend getting the pack because you're probably going to want to use this in more than one app, and why not save some money when you're doing it? Hey, how did that sound?
Excellent.
And wrap. All right, guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for demonstrating all the code, Jen, and Danny, thanks for that. And we're going to be back here next week talking about who knows what. I really don't know. But at some point, we are going to get Theo on the line here, and he's going to walk us through hackathons and some of the app development that he's done in hackathons, and we're going to see some cool code from that and glean some tidbits of wisdom from his experience. So be sure to tune in for that as soon as we can work out when that's going to happen. Until then, have a great week, guys, and happy coding.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you.
I've lost my camera.
You lost your camera.